listen-only mode.
Good morning, folks. Kicking over 11 o'clock now, so welcome you all to today's podcast. I am Hayden McCall. I run iStart magazine, and will be facilitating today's session, which is a podcast, a little bit different if you've joined us for the lunch boxes. Slightly different mode today. We did take a dive into the sponsor's product, have a look around their application, and today that application will be Epicor, and they're announcing, and well, they've announced a few weeks ago now, the Epicor 10 version, which has quite a number of new features that will be an interesting look. We've had a little bit of a dig through yesterday, and looks like some really interesting stuff in there. So if you don't know Epicor, you're just coming along to kind of understand who they are. They're the 6th largest ERP provider globally. They've got about 20,000 customers. They work through about 60 offices around the world with 4,500 employees. So they're a sizable player in the ERP market. So yeah, have a looking at Epicor 10, social collaboration tools, a lot of mobility solutions, sort of run it on any device. And you'll fire into doing that straight away. Just while people are arriving, a little bit of housekeeping. No note-taking required. You'll get a recording sent out. That'll come out tomorrow, and there'll be plenty of time with questions. So if you've got questions as we go through, please fire them through to me. Just in the sidebar for the GoToWebinar, hit the plus on the questions pane, and you can just type away and submit that through, and we'll deal with those as we go. Introducing today's presenters, we've got Sandy LaRue is from Epicor. She is a self-described demo queen, very capable and enthusiastic about the product, and particularly this latest version with the features that come with it. She's been enjoying getting that out in front of customers and prospects, so she'll be running things through. I'm going to try and make sure that we keep up with her, and you guys do the same. Please just fire any questions in that if you've skipped over something too quickly and don't understand it, then we'll try to get Sandy to slow down, but hopefully she's being the demo queen, she'll know the appropriate rate. We also have on hand Campbell Martin. He's Territory Manager in New Zealand for Epicor, mainly for the Q&A, but if anything comes up as we go, then Cam is on hand to answer them. Good morning, guys. You there, Sandy?
Morning.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. Good morning.
Very good, very good. Hey, just quickly, in terms of questions, that's kind of that sidebar. Open it up. If you guys have got questions, please get them in. Just really want to have an interactive session. But other than that, I will hand over with no further ado to Sandy, and she'll run things from here. So Sandy, I'll hand controls over to your end.
Good morning. Can everybody see my screen there, Hayden?
Yep, looks good, Sandy.
Okay, great. Well, good morning to all, or should I say good day, because we're across Australia and New Zealand with this podcast, and we're starting at 11 o'clock, so New Zealand time, and 9 o'clock Australian time. So what I'd like to start off with today with our discussion around advanced collaboration and mobility in our ERP is just to touch on and maybe look at a couple of things. First of all, Hayden has actually mentioned a little bit about us and us being one of the top 6 ERP systems globally, and we have about 4,600 employees. We've been around for about 40 plus years, and we turn over about $1 billion. Obviously, our passion is assisting our customers, so we would like to have a look today with this podcast excuse me, at looking back in history a little bit to then look forward, and then have a look at how Epicor has evolved through this process and what we have today with our Epicor 10 version. So I'd like to start off by just looking back and what has happened in the past. And I'd like to start off by looking at an organization that a lot of us have known in the past, which was Kodak. They basically traced their roots to the birth of photography in the sort of late 1800s. And by the 1900s, We found that they basically had been turning, a $28 billion business as a market cap in 96, 97, and then they had revenues of about 16 billion, 140,000 employees, and then suddenly in January 2012, their market cap was less than $1 million. And this whole change in technology had then evolved into them basically almost disappearing. And what we found was that basically in April the 9th, 2012, we had Facebook acquiring a company which was Instagram, which was turning over $1 billion and employees of only 13. So this whole look of what has happened has dramatically changed the competitive situation in the marketplace. So technology has been driving this. So if we look back at sharing information or collaboration and people exchanging information, and we look back to the 1800s, we can look at 1876 when Alexander Graham Bell patented the telephone. Now that's quite a funny image to a lot of people, I would imagine. But what I'm trying to say is that it took basically a century for the landline phone to reach the situation of a saturation point, which means that basically demand fell off at that stage. And what
Sandy,
we
what
found
is
is,
that picture? Sorry to interrupt, but what is that picture?
well, it's one of the first sort of telephonic a piece of equipment that was based on what the landline was developed from.
We've moved on. We've moved on. Carry on.
Well, from that situation, we had mobile phones coming in. And by contrast, mobile phones were hitting or achieving a saturation in just 20 years. Mobile phones have also come along the track and halved the rate yet again. And tablets are now even looking at being, saturating the marketplace in the United States. It's basically difficult to look at what has happened over that period of time, except to look back and see that in 1993, Bell South launched the IBM Simon, which is very much the first touch screen that was launched in that era. We then had in 2002 in America the first launch of the smartphone, and this is where our PDAs came along, and the first sort of PDA ability to make a phone call came on. RIM shipped its first BlackBerry with phone features, and we had sort of a hand spring launch into the whole Palm OS power, and the Trio line was launched. Microsoft then sort of got in and shipped its Pocket PC with its phone editing, if you like, or mobile database technology, and then the whole GPS environment started coming on. This increased the whole widespread look at the mobile phone, which is really quite interesting when you look back. 4.5 years later, in 2006, the quarter before Apple announced its new iconic sort of iPhone, only 715,000 smartphones were sold, representing just 6% of the US's mobile phone sales by volume. I suppose up to that point, smartphones were spreading not much faster than personal computers, and we basically saw a preceding decade of, slower than the radio decade before it was going. And then there was a sudden change. Apple's iPhone sold 1.12 million units in the first full quarter of availability, despite it costing us $399 per unit. Year on year, the market share of smartphones almost doubled to 11% of the US mobile phone sales. And now Nielsen's is basically reporting that smartphones represent 2/3 of the US mobile phone sales. Nielsen's are also reporting that 50% of the US mobile phone users, which equates to about 40% of the US population, now use a smartphone. So after this relevantly fast sort of start, it looks like landline telephones after 45 years to get to 5%, from 5% to 50% penetration across US households. And mobile phones are looking around 7 years to reach a similar proportion to consumers. And our smartphone uptake is growing, we're basically now looking at the world changing. And this is where the war began, I would say, in the war change. So what's happening now? Apple is seen as one of the most valuable companies out there, basically on earth, as they say. Software reaches, tens of millions of users within weeks. Major technology names like Research in Motion and Nokia are being undone by rapid changes to the market. Underlying these developments, the unprecedented speed at which mobile computers are spreading, this is becoming a sort of growing trend, and Epicor has been watching this, and we've been working with our solution across this. In 1982, there were 4.6 billion people in the world and not a single mobile phone subscriber. Today, there are 7 billion people in the world and 6 billion mobile cell phone subscribers. A person wonders who's going to win this war. Today, 136 years after Bell received the US patent for improving in techgraphy, only 17 countries have as many as one telephone line for 2 people. Less than 30 years after Amatec phoned Bell's grandson in America for the first commercial cell phone call, an astronomical 158 out of 200 countries in the world have been monitored as to the threshold of mobile phones and their uptake. Even though some of these sort of countries that don't have much from a cell phone, or income perspective, some people are earning $5 a day, but they seem to have a mobile phone. So the next boom and beyond is taking place. We're seeing the iPad come in, we're seeing Android being launched, and in only 18 months later, tablet penetration in the US households is already hit 11%. And Google is, and studies are being taken place around technology, both Google and Amazon. The Kindle Fire has taken place, and we're now looking at the US market and saying tablet computers are now exceeding 13% in just 2 years into the market's existence. According to Gartner, there is now at least 1.4 billion PCs in the world. And we are looking at personal computers becoming the thing that's actually disappearing as a normal computer, and the tablet seizing that sort of smart environment. So technology and innovation are having a huge impact on our marketplace. And you'll see I've just brought up the iPad, the Android, and the Microsoft Surface Pro. And what's happening is everybody wants to be connected, and they're all wanting to be sharing information and collaborating. So what are we talking about here? Social is coming into it. It's connecting people. We're having personal and business connections taking place. We're converting our whole society into this instant society where business itself as well is looking at how it can use social and what tools can be used to basically bring the customer closer and closer, and improving customer service, keeping in touch with customers, and that whole tying them to your business. The C-level, if you want to call them, are looking at the social business and wondering how they can use it in their business today. So 60% of our customers today, if we look at them, if not more, are saying how can they do business with you? How can they get what they need immediately? How can they engage with you and get what the information or the tools that they need to make them make the decisions they wish very quickly? A lot of our customers are on the move as well. They're looking at ways after the recession to make it more efficient with less staff and how they can really use technology. And they're wanting their suppliers and their customers to engage with them in more efficient manner. Besides, the kids coming out of school, what they do as well is they're looking for organizations as preferred employers who would give them the opportunity to take up some of this technology which they get through the schools. Anyway, with that all in mind, and that was just a look at history. I mean, Epicor's been around for quite some time, since this technology has grown. And what we're looking at is how we can connect people, and this is what our Epicor 10 version has given us. I mean, we've been able to deploy information on an iPad since the iPad 1 was there. So we're quite excited to be able to show you a little bit about what we can do today. So that was a bit around the PowerPoints and the look and feel side of it.
Lovely little
But let's have a look at
lesson of history, Sandy, quite entertaining. Good stuff. Right, so we're into the product demo. Brilliant.
Correct. So here we go. Let's have a look at what we can actually do with Epicor. Some of you might look at the screen and wonder and see that it looks pretty much like Windows 8, but it actually is not Windows 8. That is Epicor. It's got a tile look and feel. Now, we do have multiple ways of accessing information in Epicor, but for today's demonstration, what I'm going to do is take you through a couple of examples of things. First of all,
so Sandy, what are we looking at here? This is your home screen, if you like. You've just logged into Epicor. This is where you start your day. Yeah.
Correct, absolutely correct. So this is our whole first home screen and the whole look and feel around it. So what I've got on my screen is I've got sitting on the left-hand side here. If you imagine I'm a brand new employee, maybe in your organization or in a organization, and I've been issued my mobile device and I've booted it up and I've got a couple of tiles on it, and I can basically move around and go anywhere with this device. So on the left-hand side, I've got a little activity stream of information that is, maybe groups of people that I can follow, or a group that I belong to within the organization, and some information that's coming at me around business details. So I can see that information. I also have here in my favorites a process map, which I can open up, and if I wish to, I can actually engage with. So if I'm a brand new employee, I can go in and I can actually look at my process map.
So
and if I wish to, I can actually open
manual?
up.
It's a kind of a procedures manual. It's kind of for the employee, training, induction, in that aspect. Yeah.
Absolutely. So here I can now open up this process map, see where I need to go because I'm brand new, click on any of the processes and get to the access of the information very quickly. What it also means, if you look at the tiles that I have here on my screen, because this is a touch screen enabled device, I can actually expand and open device items as I wish, moving tiles around as well as I get used to my device and bringing the most important things to the front for me as I want to. Now I can quite easily add tiles too if I wish, but if you look across what I have here is all the access to any information that I might need. Some favorites which align with what I'm needing, as well as my task set. So I could also just simply click a button and get a list of what my tasks are for the day. And any of these tasks I can simply interact with directly from my task list.
Okay, and I see there Epicor best practices. So is that packaged with the solution? So that comes kind of out of the box, and then you customize that. You've got my workflow, so this specific kind of organizational change that's been implemented. Is that how the thinking is?
Absolutely, and you can actually have your training videos and everything aligned with that as well. So someone who's brand new in the business will be able to, from their mobile device, laptop, any PC or anything, be able to access that immediately from their desktop.
Okay, and it's a click and drag to add that stuff in there, or, you've got Word and Outlook in there?
Click and drag, and in fact if I click on the screen, a right click on it, you'll see I can simply add another tile here if I wish, or I can change companies or go workstations, anything I want, and this process actually follows me wherever I go.
Cool.
Okay. So once I've got my tiles and things, I might as a new employee be told that I need to requisition something, and if I don't know all the menu items in the system, I might want to search for them. And here at the top of the screen I have a little search button, and I can actually come into the system and I can start typing a word like requisition, and I can search through my menu systems for anything that I want. So I don't have to have on my desktop every menu option that I need to click on. I can find them quite easily. And whilst I open up my requisition, I can then also capture whatever I need to and allow myself to create a requisition for any items that I might need when I need them. Now you'll notice I can also have function keys if I wish. So whilst I can use my touch screen, I can press a function key to actually start my requisition request. So you'll notice the F4 on the side there, that actually gives me my requisition line. Now if I wanted to, for example, order an iPhone and I knew that I had to assign a specific details to it, I can give a description, say where I want to purchase it from, and get my iPhone approved. So I want one of those. And that's just by searching directly in the system. Now whilst I'm on that requisition, I might want to send a message to my manager that I've actually processed that specific iPhone, and I want my manager in their activity stream to see what happens. Now I could set up a alert, or have the business could have an alert automatically on this, that when a new requisition goes out, I could then, it could automatically send an email to my manager, or I could simply right-click on any of the fields, and you'll notice when I go down to it, I can then post a message to whomever it is. So I can simply right-click, post a message, and then decide who I would like to post that message to. So I might want to post it to my sales manager, new iPhone required, and I could attach a brochure or anything if I want to, and I can post that message. Now that means I've interacted with Epicor through the menu system, and if I come back here now and I refresh my system, I should see my activity stream having gone out with that specific captured item for my requisition. So
those are transactions,
that whole activity stream
going there as well.
Sorry, you were saying, Hayden?
Are those transactions or orders going through the system, or is that absolutely everything, all your messaging, and I guess you've given a message to your manager, that'll appear in there as well?
That will be for any information anywhere in the system. So I can, that one I've assigned straight to the sales manager. It could be to an individual. It could be to a group of people. It can be from any field, anywhere within Epicor, that you can start an activity stream or a communication stream from any field within Epicor. So if you want to start communications with, happening around a specific item, then we can, you can do it with a simple right click.
Yep.
Okay, so that applies to all sorts of searches. But if you can imagine, I've got a customer on the phone now, I'm in the same environment, and now what happens is that customer has turned around and said to me that they have a specific item that they're trying to track down from an order perspective. And they said that their name is Addison, and it is an item called a steel O-ring. And I want to look through the database for information relating to that steel O-ring. I can type in the customer's details and it'll bring up that information for me very quickly. So what that means is I can then have a look at it from whatever aspect that information has been found in. So I said I was looking for Addison, which is a customer, steel O-ring being a specific item he's purchased, and it's come back with me talking about shipments or any specific items that are transactions against that item. So you'll see where it's used that word, it puts it in bolder letters. So now I have a list. I can turn to a grid view of those items if I wish. And in fact, I can actually go along and look at the packing slip by clicking on the actual packing slip item. This then will open up Epicor for me and show me that actual packing slip. And I've actually just been searching for information using random words as I've gone along, and the system has looked for it and deployed that information to me. Now I see there's a tracking number there, so I can open it up, and while I'm discussing this with the customer, I can then have a look at when that item was actually shipped. So it's linked through the tracking number directly into my FedEx side and giving me the details of where I tracked that item to.
Sandy,
so that's
just
a
to
little
drill
bit
into that.
about, yes?
So I just noticed I was looking for a date column in that column view, and it wasn't there. And I was thinking, well, that's likely you're probably going to want to grab one that's specifically around a date range. I assume that the way that's presented, you can configure some options around how that works, or are we just scrolling right across and date will be there somewhere?
Absolutely. Any of these fields can be reshuffled if you like. So if I wanted to, I could bring in a date view. I can add by simply right-clicking. I can add extra fields onto this and allow it now to populate the information to that table.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I guess where's date then? It must be there somewhere. It's scrolling across.
Yeah. If I looked across, there would be a date over here. You could see my warranty information. And if I scroll across a little bit further, there's my change dates and information. So again, I could pull across any of the information that I wanted across from there if I wanted to pull it into view.
Yeah, cool.
Again, I can click at the top as well, and I can sort any information as well as group. So if I wanted to, I can right-click and group information as well together.
Nice. Okay, yep,
Okay.
carry on.
So that information around that specific customer, if we looked at that information, I can simply pick up and look at anything around that customer and in fact start drilling down further if I wish to with a simple right click. I can copy, paste, look at any other items within the system as well, all the way drilling down to the sales order if I wish. Now my customer might also say that they're having a problem with the serial number. So I could then come in and say, Addison, if you like, and give me serial numbers for a specific item that they might be looking at, which they're not sure of the serial numbers on them. And I could look for that information as well. And in looking at that information, simply clicking on it, I can see all details around what shipped for that customer specifically, or all serial numbers that are out to that customer. Once I've got the details of the serial number, I can again simply click on it. So whilst talking to that customer, I can be of service to the customer across a multitude of information and just simply using that search. So here I've clicked on and I've pulled up an item, the serial number for the customer. I can see the packing slip it was shipped on, when it was shipped out. If I wanted to, I could drill down to the lower lying materials attached to the job, be having to look all the way to that material level if you wish. But if the customer turns around and he says, I actually want to register a call because I'm having an issue with that item, can you create an issue for me and follow up so I can return this item? I can simply right-click on that customer and it'll pull through for me as much information as is available for that item, including putting in my serial number if I wish and defaulting all my information around it. I can register the issue. My bracket is broken on this. And then I could collaborate or send information to the engineering team if I wish, or if I want to, and I have to select a workflow group, as you can see, because I can have workflow around that specific item and allow myself to actually select whether it's a returned material or not. But before I actually return the material, what I might want to look at is any other information that I might have on the system relating to a similar item. This customer says they have reception issues. I can go and look for in my knowledge base around reception issues, and you'll see there's a whole lot of things I can search by, and I can go and have a look at a specific item and see any resolutions or what actually happened with that item. I can see previously when this had happened, they actually had to replace a converter. So at this stage, with the customer information and understanding that the converter was replaced before, whilst I'm on my mobile device, I can then come back into my Epicor system and actually see here the knowledge of what had taken place and help that customer straight from my mobile device, registering for the rest of the business to see what's happening. I can also simply right-click and post a message to social if I want to our engineering team, and say to the engineering team or the customer service team, whoever it is, that please check on this.
Okay, Sandy, just a question.
Yes.
So Elaine's asked the question. I was wondering exactly the same thing. Is all of this, and I think you're alluding to it, but just to clarify, so this is all browser based, or you can, you're on any device, you're navigating through and into these Epicor screens, correct?
Correct. Right through the system, we are able, any of that information could be through web browser, on your mobile device, and all I'm doing is navigating directly through them.
Yeah. So I guess, obviously some of these things, you're talking kind of call center activity, you're probably not going to be doing that most often. Obviously these screens are not that friendly in terms of presenting on a mobile, on an iPhone, for example. But are they responsive? Does it adjust to the screen size?
Yes, we do. We adjust to the screen size automatically. So whatever device that you're working with, it'll automatically adjust to that screen sizing.
Yeah, which meaning it shrinks down, so you have to expand it with your fingers wider, or does it actually change the layout of the fields to make them bigger and more user friendly?
We actually do both. So we actually allow it to shrink to the size when you move your fingers backwards and forwards. If we were physically sitting on one of the devices, I could show you how that works. We also have the capability of deploying things directly, like if you've got a captured audience and you only want to deploy specific information and you want it resized specifically for those people, we can do that as well automatically from the system by a simple click of a button. So certain fields can go to a device, be updatable, and be fitting on that screen itself.
Okay, nice. So you configure it specifically for, say, you back in your requisitions for the iPhone. The manager is out and about, but they get a requisition screen that's a simple, who's it come from? What are they asking for? What's it going to cost? Date, I suppose, and a simple approve button, and you can just configure that.
Correct. In fact, Hayden, I was going to open up one of our dashboards here and give you a heads up on the KPI side as well. You'll see that sometimes you're looking at a KPI, and what you can see is I've got my KPI sitting across here. I've got several of them. It's come from my mobile device. You can see I'm clicking at the moment, but it could be a simple finger pull-out situation on an iPad or an iPhone where you drag your fingers apart and it'll open up the screen for you. The same can apply to physical information like a list, like an Excel spreadsheet type look and feel list. And if you see, I can simply right-click here as well, and I can copy and paste, do all of that information. At any stage, I can drag and drop as well. So if I want to pull information together, simply dragging and dropping that information up. And if I wanted to, I could simply go to my tools and deploy this, if I wanted to, this dashboard to a specific person's smartphone, if you like, and have it resized automatically to fit on the smartphone. And I'm just doing this. This is something that happens automatically in the background. But just to show you how the resize works, I can generate that and say, just show it in my designer so we can see it right now, and I can automatically have it resized for me and push the information out to a smartphone, giving me the necessary information that I might want. And you can see my sort is still sitting there. I can drag and drop on a smaller version of it. If I look graphically at my customer information, I can start pulling information through, and it will resize as I go along. simply by clicking on any of the information that I've previously looked at. Does
Okay.
that answer your question, Hayden?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's grappling with looking at information that's not familiar, but I get the idea. So you can pretty much design those reports to suit how you're going to deploy them.
Yep, and we don't have to have them deployed in that manner. They can actually be deployed directly to an iPhone or an iPad, and you can use the finger, sort of pulling the fingers apart and making items larger and smaller as you go.
Okay, and is
The
it
other
running?
side that I
I mean, I
want
guess
to,
we're probably getting into
sorry?
some architectural questions, but is it
Sure.
running? Is there an app on the iPad? Is that how it's accessing it, or how does that work?
Well, we work in both environments, if you like, because automatically with Epicor you're able to pull information, onto the tiled system, if you like. As I've mentioned to you before, I have a capability here of creating a tile, and when I actually create the tile, I can say what I'd like to deploy there. So I can have any of my programs, any standard Epicor information added to the tile, so I can have general information or links being pulled through, and these can then be pulled in. Epicor Forms as a standard can be deployed on any mobile device, and this allows us to pull in any of those menu items or lists directly onto any of the devices. Over and above that, if I wish to, and I'll just simply minimize this and open up an iPad, for example, over here. This is a simple iPad emulator, and what Epicor can do as well is we can actually open up on an iPad if you wanted to, and you wanted to give a very targeted specific information to specific users in the system. Whilst you can open up all of Epicor on these devices, but you wanted to have a specific view, we can then create any of these views that you require simply by the click of a button, allowing that information to go on an iPad, be editable if you like, so I can physically edit any of that information. And this is simply a list of my quote funnel where I'm looking at the confidence percentage of an order, how likely am I to get this order, and I can change the information on the fly while I'm out at the customer, save it away, and it automatically saves that back to Epicor. So
Yeah.
that
Okay.
information, to us it doesn't matter where it needs to go. It's about what information the audience needs and wishes to use.
Okay, so Ken's raised the obvious question of where then is the application hosted? Is it and I assume you can host it wherever you like, but what are the options on that front?
Well, actually, from an Epicor perspective, we can you can have your Epicor system sitting in the cloud if you like. We have a cloud offering, and from our customer perspective, to us it doesn't matter whether you're in the cloud or on-premise. We can move from cloud to on-premise and on-premise back into cloud either way. Our solution is the same solution. It's not a cut-down version or anything from that perspective when we're in the cloud. So exactly what I'm showing you now, it does not matter to us where it is.
Okay, and if Elaine's proposed the next question, iPad, if the iPad's offline, is it actually able to be run locally offline, or is it always requiring a connection?
Yes, we do have an offline situation for a lot of our areas in our business. Obviously, we can deploy anything offline. It's a matter of how much or what size device the person's got, how much they can save on that device, how enabled that device is. So we can do a lot of our sales functions, our engineering functions, any of our, jobs out in the field type environments, anything of that nature can be saved onto the device and been brought back. Information moves very easily with Epicor. In fact, even if you're someone that works with an Outlook, and you suddenly got a call from a customer, for example, and he said, can you send through for me, you know, a list of all my invoices, for example. I could simply be coming in and you know, addressing a customer, saying, here's a list of invoices, and I can simply deploy from any application what I'm looking for. So if I put in here Addison invoices, and you see it actually remembered my information I put in before. I can say advanced insert, and now I can include a table if you like, all my matches. Any information can be deployed quite easily directly from Epicor into my email. So any information like that can be deployed, and I can send that off to my customer now, and off it goes. So it doesn't matter to Epicor anymore what application you're working with and on what device you're working with.
That was cool. How did you do that? Is that so? Just go through that again, step by step.
Okay, I'm in Outlook at the moment.
Yep.
I go new email, because I could have been replying to an email. So I'm saying my customer Addison is on the line, Andrew Addison from Addison. And what I'm saying is, here's a list of your invoices, because he's asked me for one. And all I've done is I've opened up and actioned the Epicor items, and you'll see it's got a whole line of items I had before that it's remembering in memory. But all I've done is action the Epicor search, and I'm typing in some keywords, and I can use
that was a function key, was it?
Well.
Is that a function key to bring that up?
Yes, it is. It's my control and space key.
Okay.
So I can hit control space or Windows and space, the Windows key and space, and if I hit Windows and space, it'll actually take the information I'm looking at and pull it through for me automatically and push it through Epicor.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
So
yeah. Cool. I think that's for me, that bridged the gap. You went quite quickly through that step. It was like, oh, how did that happen?
Oh, I know we're on limited time, Hayden. I want to make sure you saw that.
Yeah. No, so carry on. We're just about through what we said was going to be our time. Good questions coming in too, folks. Just keep them rattling in if there's anything that's you know, raising as we go through.
While we're sitting there, if you don't need me to show you how I inserted that at the moment, one question that might be being asked at the moment is this whole collaboration side of things and our activity stream, if we call it that, and the ability, almost like Twitter, to use things. It might pay for me to quickly show you a couple of things around that. For starters, in Epicor, you don't have to be an Epicor user to take part in the Epicor social enterprise side of things. You can simply be a social user. So you can be given, if you have an email address, you can simply be given an email and invited in as a user as part of the social side of things. Another part is as well, and I'll simply close this off, is you can also come in as a person that is, and I'll just pad this to the one side, and we'll bring in our other side over here. You can be a user that does take part in Epicor data as well. So you can work with the system as in part of this collaboration and sharing of information. You can work within the system as you wish. So you'll see on my left-hand side here, I have someone called S-Man, which is Superman, if you like. I like Superman and Batman. And here you can see I can take part in the social environment. I'm using a Chrome browser, and on the right-hand side, I'm a user of Epicor as well as the social side. And here I'm coming in as Penny Lane. So you can see that we can actually have people set up with who they follow. So they might follow people or what groups they might follow. And this one is following the customer service environment. We can also set up profiles for individuals of who they are from a social perspective, put an image with or whatever the case is. If I look at this side, you can see I have a lot more information that I'll be tracking, and you can see I can be a follower of Epicor information, as well as I can be following individual people. And here I'm following a specific salesperson. I'm a sales operations person, and this is a specific salesperson. I can also belong to
the
groups.
Enterprise, right?
Pardon?
This is within the enterprise, so you're following other colleagues within the organisation who are also using this same social enterprise profile.
Correct. Correct. So this whole social side of it from an Epicor perspective is enterprise-wide. So some people, you'll get a CEO, for example, who doesn't get into the Epicor side of things, you know, the business system side, but just wants to be alerted information. So alerted around communications taking place or collaboration around a specific event or item, a sales order or anything of that nature, or specific alerts that are happening. You know, we fall below a margin on a specific product that's being sold. They just want to get the alerts as we are here on the left-hand side. But if we look on the right-hand side here, we can be a specific person that looks at all the information operational-wise, and if I scroll down, you can see I get all my alerts around orders that have gone in on hold and so on. And because I have that access right, I can then simply click on the item and I can go to anywhere within Epicor.
So this is 100% browser-based. You're in a browser interaction here rather than a kind of an app environment. Is there a different
Correct.
licensing construct depending on the type of user that they just get browser access versus full access to the whole system?
Well, from my understanding, there's all one license for it, and it's browser-based. So you can get the information. Someone just has to have access rights, and they get access rights by being invited in. So you can have an administrator that says, yes, I understand that person's email address, I acknowledge who it is, they're allowed to collaborate and share information, and you invite them in, and when they are invited in, they're given a log-on. And it's at that stage you decide what access rights they get. They can have multiple notification sources. For example, you can have Epicor as a source. You can bring in other sources as well, like you could have CAD people or whatever that might be interested in collaborating and sharing about drawing information or whatever the case may be.
All right, fabulous. And what about externally? Say you're following someone on LinkedIn as a partner or customer.
Very good point there, because I can come in and I can search for any information that I might want. And in fact, if I typed in Epicor here as a hashtag and I went out, you'll see that I can look at any of my searches. I can even go and look at Twitter if I like, and I can search Twitter and it'll bring up the information for me around Epicor, for example. So I can bring in and collaborate and share information on anything. I can post messages as well if I wish and have a look at any of my followers or anybody specific if I wish. And if I'm wanting to post a message to them, I can even browse and attach files. So if you're looking at collaborating and sharing and managing information, I can quite easily post something, attach the drawing, and have a whole sharing and workflow taking place.
Okay. Look, Sandy, there's a stream of questions coming in, so I guess we should get into
Sure.
Q&A. If there's nothing,
Sure.
Any areas that you haven't covered off that you wanted to, or we get into Q&A, yeah? You happy?
Yep, we can get straight into Q&A if you like, Hayden.
Okay, so Michelle raised a question, and this is, I guess, goes to the point of the level of integration outside of Epicor, but integrating with Google Mail, just Gmail was her question.
We can integrate with any system that's basically out there, and the searchability even is exactly the same. It's a matter of defining the sources that the information is coming from. So
Okay.
Once we define those sources, both our searching and our interaction ability is there.
Yeah, okay. I think that answers the question, Michelle. I mean, to me that's a relatively straightforward and Gmail just one of the email interfaces that would be able to be accessed. So, okay, another question from Alex. And this, I guess, is around some of the role-based where we started off. Does Epicor have a grab bag of business applications to choose from? And he mentions maintenance management, inventory management, warehousing, management systems. And I just maybe talk to that a little bit.
Yes, we have a number of modules, if you like, and that's our sort of grab bag of information. It's almost like Lego blocks, if you like, so you can grab at those specific areas. So those Lego blocks that you need can be made available. It's a simple licensing situation, and then they are available to be used on any mobile devices and so on, because the core part of the Epicor technology is enabled to be able to go to those browsers and those devices very seamlessly. So it's been opened up to be able to allow that.
Okay, yep. Maybe Cam, do you want to talk a little bit about just how that licensing construct works?
So Epicor is licensed on a per concurrent basis, and for the collaboration side, we license anyone that's got a license within the to use Epicor has a license for the collaboration side, and then we license as an enterprise-wide. There's like a server or module-based license to allow for people outside the organisation to enter and interact with the collaboration.
Yeah, okay. Alex poses another question, and just looking at integration with other ERP systems, whether there's any capability within the Epicor suite, I guess out-of-the-box connectors and things with the likes of SAP and JD Edwards.
Actually, that's a very interesting question, Hayden, because the technology or the framework that Epicor has invested in developing over all these years has meant that a lot of our simple processes that we have, for example, we have what's called, as part of our core system, we have something called a business activity query. And those queries, whilst it sounds like you have to run something, are very simple to construct, they are also updatable and can action any other sources that are out there. Basically, what they do is allow us to connect simply by creating the query and defining the external source. And so we have a lot of customers that have actually integrated with SAP and those sorts of systems out there quite seamlessly because of that. The core part of the Epicor technology, both from an alert and business process management perspective, the ease of setting that up and collaborating and sharing that type of information and integrating is a core part of this whole framework and technology.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm getting that it's a very open system. It's pretty much limitless, really. It feels like you can define internal or external sources is really very open and accessible. Jeff poses the question in the other direction. To what extent can you limit the ability to, particularly with those external sources, so being able to copy and paste onto an email or dump onto a Twitter stream information directly out of the system? Can you peg that down?
And that's a very good question, because if you looked at, and I'm hoping this will answer it for you, but if you have a look here on the social side here, where I said this specific user is just a user of the social but doesn't have access to that source of information, or we go all the way down to the field level if you want to be able to take this, a table, a specific item on a specific table. But here you'll see this specific item I've got here, which this person has only got access to the social side of it. The minute I click on it, while you can see there's the open with ability, it won't allow that user to go into that information because they don't have access to that information or that source of that's coming from.
Okay, so you can listen, but you might not be able to interact.
Correct. Correct. So the minute you try to attempt to that, the messages will be popping up saying, look, speak to the administrator if you want access to that information, you're not entitled to it. Or you, and obviously for certain things, you know, have certain things that you give to customers or suppliers, and certain items you allow employees at different levels to do. So the security is there to go to the table and the field level if you like.
Okay. Keep the questions coming in, guys. That's all that I've got in front of me right now. Sandy, Cam, anything further you want to pitch in, just in the context of what we've talked about today?
Yeah, so Hayden, one of the things that came up was just you talking about integration. One of the things that Epicor's also invested with, along with collaboration, is Epicor Commerce Connect, which is so that's a tool that allows us to hook into other B2B and B2C portals, and in particular we've got a big focus around hooking into Magento, which has got a big following at the moment.
Okay, so your e-commerce connectivity and online store integration is enabled through that.
Yes, and what we've talking to our customers, what we realise is that what people don't necessarily want is a vendor to say, here's our only solution, and yet they've invested a lot in a platform they've already done or have, or a platform they want to go forward with. So Epicor Commerce Connector allows you to have the freedom of choice and to have whatever e-commerce platform you have, or and one we're seeing picking up a lot of traction is the Magento one, which is you can start off with a free version as it's open source.
Yeah, okay. And Sandy, you're showing a little bit there, are you? Sorry, I muted you. I could hear Cam in the background.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I just went straight into it because I heard Cam talking about it. It's a pretty exciting tool as well, and you can see here, I just opened it up while he was talking about it. Customer can log in and have their dashboard, looking at their orders, their invoices and so on, and if they're wanting to actually order something, it's interactable where you can search for certain things. If I put in the word nut, for example, I can go off and look for information around that. I've also have selections of information that can do, come up and so on as well, and configurable items as well. So images, I can compare, put things on wish lists, those sorts of things as well. And there's also a configurator which can be pulled up, and I can actually configure products on the fly as well if I want to. And Epicor has its own embedded configurator. It's one we've developed ourselves. Works both in the purchasing, in our inspection side, where we have QA and people can build their own specification and plans for QA using a configuration of results and things they'd like, as well as actually in an order or a quote, just pulling it up and being able to configure what they like, images and everything as well.
Okay, great.
And of course this works on any mobile device again.
Of course. Elaine, quick, simple question, or maybe it's not a simple question. What database does the solution run on?
Epicor's running on SQL.
Yep, simple answer. There you go. All right, look, it's to squeeze what we've tried to do into less than an hour is a bit of a challenge, but hopefully for the audience today it gives you a bit of an idea of the direction that Epicor is taking the product, and certainly the level of openness and collaboration is pretty impressive. Some details there that you will probably want to get your teeth into if you're interested in looking further. So we have got, and we'll bring it to a close if there's no further questions, and Cam or Sandy, you've got nothing further to add, we'll bring things to a close. But just one thing, when you do shut down, there'll be another survey that pops up just in terms of the interaction with today, some questions. We really do appreciate your responses to those. So it pops up in another separate browser window. If you can take the time to answer them, they're very much appreciated, both from my perspective and from Epicor's in terms of follow-up. One of the things that is on offer there is Epicor have bought the license to, and you may have heard of this report. It's one from Gartner that I'm sure most of you would have heard of, the Nexus of Forces. It's talking about that social, mobile, local, cloud sort of data mashup that's gone on, and really I guess this is a case in point for where products are going. That they've got access to the full paper, so I think some value in getting that. Just check the box in the exit survey as you go out, and any feedback outside of that. But if otherwise, thank you very much for joining today. Thanks, Sandy, for your contribution. A tough challenge to get through so much in such a short space of time, but I think you've done a good job of giving us a little bit of a sneak peek. Thanks, Cam, and thanks everyone in the audience. I'll close things there.
Thank you, Hayden. Good to talk to you guys.
Thanks, Hayden.
Cheers, Sandy. Cheers, Cam. Thanks. Goodbye, everyone.